pledge allegiance.
Yeah.
He's welcome.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, you go ahead and,
Or we only have one copy?
No. Here, we'll take that.
I'll just look at it.
No, I got more copies.
Takes around 2 seconds to get things stuff in here. Make a motion to accept the minutes?
you have a second.
I'll second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye. Norris is not going to be here tonight?
Norris will not be here tonight. He called just a little while ago and said he didn't think he'd be able to make it. Okay, one of the other things that I wanted to do is I just wanted to pass out to everybody. Again, this is a copy of the report that we provided at the last township board meeting. Basically, just gave it was a recap of our May 9th Citizens Committee meeting. Talked about the number of additional responses that we've received. Talked about that the night before, we had introduced 18 documents as part of our information gathering process. Identified the focus points that we're addressing, and basically established tonight is the next scheduled meeting. So this is the document that was provided to the township May 10th. At that meeting, Phyllis had handed me a copy of a letter that Ogden Township trustees received from the village of Metamora. And I don't remember if she included this in with the documentation of correspondence given to the trustees or not.
No, she did not. No, she didn't. It came after because she said she wasn't sure whether or not it was supposed to go to us or whether it was supposed to go to her.
Okay, well, at the next meeting, the next board meeting, I'll make sure that they get copies of this, because it's specifically addressed to the Ogden Township trustees. You know, all the impact letters that we had sent out, we had requested that responses come back addressed to me.
Right.
So I gotta believe that this was intended for the township.
I agree also.
So we'll get that covered. The next township.
Were there any other communications we've received or not?
Well, we have in addition to, we were provided with the Great Lakes and the Exelon response at our last meeting. Since then, we've also received a response from Enbridge, which is a gas pipeline operation here in Ogden. The Michigan Department of Natural Resource Wildlife Division, and the FAA U.S. Department of Transportation. And really in all of them, there were no significant issues that they'd identified. FAA did indicate that they were passing on our letter to the U.S. Department of Transportation. I think it's a different location from where this FAA letter was sent to, and just to see if there's any additional information that they have that they'll provide. Along with that letter from FAA, they did make mention of several internet websites I don't have a copy of it with me, but they mentioned several internet websites to go to. They had like a list of frequently asked questions as part of their database there. So, and that letter was just received today, sometime over, after this meeting, then I'll go out and try to get that information so that we can share it. So far to date, we've received a total of 16 responses
Of the 98 we sent out.
of the 98 that we sent out. And that includes the Great Lakes Excellent response. So at this point, that's probably slightly less than 1 out of 5.
Right. It's a little disappointing. I mean, I know the one from Blissfield, though, was in the newspaper, basically, you saw that, they didn't respond to us, but basically they went and said that they're staying out of it, so, you want to take that for what it is.
Yeah. And even though I'm not so sure about this letter from the Village of Metamora, but that might be what the township gets in lieu of response back, because they were one of the stakeholders that we've addressed.
Right.
So,
And that one, Phyllis said in the meeting, they wanted a 2-mile setback from their community, if I believe that's what her summary was at the meeting.
yes, that was it. They were talking about a 2-mile setback. That's what they're asking for.
So, when you go and, you sort of look at that, and it's like, I understand we get compensated here with our tax base and everything else, but I really think we need to take into consideration for that, is that, they go and they don't get any tax compensation out of it unless they take the $1,500, and whether or not that's offered across state lines, I don't know. I don't know if that's just for the local development, or whether or not they offer that also across their 1,500 over so many years, and whether that's off the state line within a half mile,
Yeah. Their letter was, to me, it was very congenial. Basically their statement said, in the spirit of being good neighbors, we respectfully request that you create a 2-mile buffer. So that,
it's not that they're angry, they're just asking as a request.
so.
I'm wondering, when you think about that, and my own thought on that is that when you go with other townships that don't have a wind ordinance in there, what the distance do we go? Do we go with what the developers are suggesting for us? But if Fairfield doesn't have an ordinance, or Palmyra or Blissfield Village of doesn't have an ordinance, and there are detrimental things that can happen to them, how do you compensate them? Or are they willing to go and take us to court over it as a township, to go and say, wait a second, we don't have it, and should we go and look into their requests and go with that, and what their thinking is behind it, or do you go with, what, our suggestion? If they don't have an ordinance, say Riga has their ordinance and it's a half-mile setback or whatever, well then, from Riga Township, I think basically you should probably respect that in our township, that they have a half-mile ordinance. Why would we go and say, well, it's okay to be 1,320 feet because that was what their township board passed, but there's people at 1,320 feet, but another 100 feet past that across the street, they may be somebody in the township across the street from the township that could be affected by that, but they have a half-mile setback in their township. You see what I'm saying? Or is it 2 miles that Metamora is looking into? We don't know if they're developing a wind ordinance, or we don't know what's happening, or in Fairfield, or like I said, Palmyra, or Blissfield proper. So those are things that really need to be looked into, as how far is a proper setback from adjoining communities if they don't have a wind ordinance for wind turbine development, and whether or not we go with what they have and ask for a farther setback away from other communities that don't have it, so that way the township isn't liable for any lawsuits against those, it might be something to bring up to the township board, or have them talk to the lawyer on, because litigation is a big aspect of this, and if we have across state lines litigation, that could go, that could cost us a lot of money, and I think they have a lot more money in their township than what we have in ours.
Well, and that's a good point. That's probably one that the township board would want to approach the attorney on, just to get some type of a reading on it, as a matter of testing that water. I think that, from our aspect, we would just want to incorporate that so that there's an awareness of it, with the report out that we provide.
Absolutely.
And we pass that up to the township board to make sure that, you know, they're aware of it, and then it provides them with an opportunity to address it.
Absolutely. No, you're right. That was my thought on it, is that, you know, when you have townships, and like I said, if Riley has a half mile and we settle on 1320, why can't we respect their ordinance? You see what I'm saying? I mean, if they have one, why don't we respect what they have if ours is less? But wouldn't they go and respect ours if ours was more also? I mean, either or, you know, to be the friendly neighbor.
Any feedback on the process that we engaged in last meeting? Any comments on how you feel that went?
Well, we were out for a month, but it took longer than what we expected, but, I mean, do you think that we should come up with summaries instead of reading the information out loud? Is that what you're looking at, or?
Well, no, we still need to read the information out loud. You know, ultimately, the plan is that summary statements will be incorporated into the report up to the township board. Maybe not to the extent, but it's a matter of reporting up the highlights of the information that we're finding, so that, you know, if they have additional interest in it, we will also provide a document reference that they can go find that document. Because all of these reports and everything that we're coming up with, we are going to, eventually, we're going to turn over to the township board.
Right, exactly.
Because it's going to become their source documents, it's going to be their information. We're doing the footwork, you know, to try to help them out.
Right, and to make it easier, we should go and probably give a summary of everything we, you know, of each meeting or.
Well,
two
there,
months.
I think we're gonna write a comprehensive report.
we're going to, the intention is to incorporate this into a comprehensive report. So whether we, you know, just set up a summary, one document at a time, you know, as the report's being drafted, we will go back through and pull the highlight information from each document. And then we'll review that to make sure that we've captured the intent of the discussion as we're preparing to roll that up to the
That
township.
makes sense. I'm okay because I'm not good at typing. So that's why.
That's okay.
You know, but I can go, I can go.
We'll make it work.
I spend a lot of hours on the research part of it, and then when you only sit down and go and do a summary, I'm bad about that. It's going, I talk about it, but to go and have to write it down has always been painful for me.
Yeah, well, we'll make it work.
Oh, I'll go and do it, you know, no problem.
Okay. As far as the content of the discussions, satisfied with how we're approaching it, as far as the content that we're bringing up, the points that we're trying to make?
Well, I think with the, you know, we're doing due diligence. I mean, we're getting information from everyone, and we have to go and research on whether or not that information is correct, or whether or not there's other sides of the story. And I mean, I think that's what due diligence is to go and make sure that what you're getting in from information from all these places is on basis with what is right for our community. So, I mean, that's the way I see it. I don't know if everybody else, but I mean, that's, you know, you have to research and look into what everybody's offering and making sure, be it any side or whoever brings you what. So, you know, I think that's fine.
Okay. Well, I agree. I think that, you know, our purpose is to perform due diligence. We're to look at, you know, the various aspects of topics and issues. And, you know, information that is relevant to the situation we have here in Ogden is what we want to make sure that we're providing to the board.
Correct.
So, I personally think we're on target with how we're doing it, with, you know, the collecting of the reports, discussing them, and then ultimately we will come together and put together a summary document that's comprehensive. Well, in light of that, let's go ahead and start that process again tonight.